All right, all right. Welcome back. Hey, that's fun to say welcome back. That means we've done this before. It's not our first rodeo. That's a streak, baby. So welcome back to Living Lifted. I have a special guest today, Mitch Kelldorf. I don't want to take all your thunder. I'm going to do a brief little intro here. It's going to be vague. But every time, especially if I'm in the gym and you pull in one of your cars, you get out of your car and you walk, everybody's like, who the hell is that? I always just tell them that you use the helicopter to fly drugs during the week and you look that way because you're doing 80s cover bands on the weekend.
Yeah, man. Awesome.
So, that being said, he is a helicopter and airplane pilot, entrepreneur, husband, father, grandfather.
Wow, yeah.
Grandfather, Marine veteran, car connoisseur, guitarist, did a little acting, a little modeling, a little bodybuilding. What am I missing? Am I missing anything in there? Am I missing anything? You grew up in Texas. You're born in Texas.
Yep.
Let's start there.
Okay.
What was your childhood like?
Wow, man, I had a great childhood. Born in Houston, and we were there about 6 months, and then my dad got a job up around Fort Worth, a little town called Hurst, and he was working at a oil refinery, and he's kind of managing a place for this guy. So he had a new refinery to put up around Hurst where Bell Helicopter is. Okay. And so we moved up there, and probably half the town was working for Bell Helicopter because that's where they were building all the ships for Vietnam War. This was during the mid to late 60s. So the Huey gunships, the Cobras, all those aircraft were being built right there in Hurst, Texas. I don't know how, but they really intrigued me at the time as a little kid, but I didn't know any better. You know, I just see these helicopters going back and forth, you know, before they got launched out to Vietnam. Me not really knowing what the heck was going on with the war or anything, sure. But I thought the helicopters were pretty cool. But that's pretty much where my childhood was, in the little town of Hurst. And had two older brothers, Mark and Mike. Mark was about 7 years older than me. Mike was 2.
Yeah.
And so at the time, I had more of a relationship with my middle brother than I did my older brother, just simply because we were closer together. But as time went on, as we got older, obviously, got closer and closer. Pretty much Leave It to Beaver, Andy Griffith type of childhood. Nothing real crazy, you know, that you could say happened or went on in my life. Had a great mom, beautiful mom, just loved the Lord and was just a homemaker. And she just loved being a mom. That was her deal. And my dad was just a hard worker. I think that's one thing that he instilled in me and my brother's life. You know, more than anything, is just a work ethic.
What'd that look like? Chores or what was it?
You know, absolutely. Chores, you know, we had obviously, you know, mowing the lawn and raking leaves. We had rabbits we took care of. So we had these rabbit hutches in the back. Yeah. You know, we all took turns with that stuff. But back in the old days when you had the push lawnmowers, and I'm not talking about a lawnmower with a motor. You know, this is one of those old school with the, you know, the reel.
No self-propel.
Oh yeah, none of that stuff.
So it was just a rotating blade.
Yeah, just a wheel with.
I've done it one time. That's no joke. That's a workout.
And then our edger was basically a pair of shears that you just cut around the edges and stuff. So that was some of the a little bit of the work stuff that we had, but just typical chores around the house. You know, cleaning stuff up and whatnot, but. We never got allowance or anything like that. You know, we were blessed just to be able to have food on the table and, you know, a place to.
The chores were pulling your weight.
That was part of it. You know, I was shocked when I went over to a friend's house and he was like getting a quarter for doing something. What the? How did you do that?
How do I get in on this?
How do I get on this ticket, man? And so, you know, it was a real blessing to have parents like that instilled that in you early on. And you really didn't know any better or worse, other than maybe some friends you had that were a little bit better off, you might say, financially than what your parents were. But again, we didn't know any better at the time. It was a very small town. And, you know, my middle brother and I shared a bedroom. And we lived in a very small house, maybe 1,400 square feet total. And, you know, there was 2 little air conditioning units in the house, one in the parents' room and one in the kitchen. And so my brother and I would like share a fan, you know, in the summer, get a little warm. But
I'm sure you fought over that fan a little bit.
We did, you know, put a bucket of ice in front of it, you know, cool things down, or throw our pillows inside the freezer and then, you know, run back to bed with them. But it was just a great childhood growing up, you know, doing all the crazy stuff back in the 70s when Evel Knievel was around. You know, you take your bikes and try to jump everything in the neighborhood, you know, and
you build your own ramps?
Oh, of course. You know, absolutely. We killed ourselves with those. But,
I flipped over my handlebars on one of those. Take firewood and then a metal like sheet, just anything we could find, and we'd prop it. and we put that leverage a little bit too close to center. You got to the top of that ramp, went like that.
Just flip over in the back. Oh, totally. Dig those forks right into the ground.
On a gravel driveway, downhill.
Well, we actually went to the grass. We tried
You're smarter than us.
Yeah. But you had the old Stingray bikes, the swim bikes with big old banana seats on them and stuff. And I was always tweaking every toy I had too. I mean, that was another thing I did as a kid. I was just, I had to pull everything apart.
Nothing has changed.
I guess not, but you try to make things a little bit better than they are, a little faster, a little cooler looking, whatever it may be. But that's something I did just as early as I can remember. And I was also fanatical about keeping things organized. I mean, when
nothing has changed.
It's crazy. Like I got my G.I. Joes, my Army men and stuff like that. I play with them. Yeah. And I would put them back in the bags they came in, back in the box they came in, and put it back on the shelf. And it was like, my brother would be like going out of his mind, like, what are you doing? Are you crazy? Just throw the crap back in there. And, it's like one of those things, I guess some people, can either be a little bit disorganized or very organized. And, at times now, I try to kind of stay in the middle of the road because, if you get too one side or the other, it gets a little.
So I forgot to mention this in the intro. He owns this building. So when I keep saying nothing's changed, it's because I witness this on a daily basis. How long do we spend putting that center decal on that fan the other day?
Well, what's bad is you thought you had it perfect.
Okay.
That doesn't look real perfect to me. You're like, shut up.
Now, did you go to the Marines while you were in Texas, or did you go to New York first?
No, I was actually, right when I got out of high school, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do, although I did love aviation. For some reason, seeing those helicopters going back and forth, I did have a love for things in flight. And also just being around airports for some reason. There was a little airport next to us that I would go to on my bicycle, and I just loved how clean everything was and how open everything was. And so I probably about the last, 4 months before I was going to graduate high school, I just said, I want to fly. I thought the only way I'm going to learn how to fly is in the military because there's no way we could afford it, to go do this, or it'd take me, 10 years mowing lawns to go get my pilot's license.
Push mow.
So it was funny because I thought, okay, I want to fly. I'm going to go to the Air Force and see, what they've got. So fortunately, there was only 2 recruiting stations in the little town of Hearst where I was at. And they were right next to each other. It was the Air Force and the Marine Corps. So I go walking into totally bypass the Marine Corps, go walking into the Air Force. And I walked in the recruiting station, and these guys, and nothing against the Air Force. I love all branches, but unfortunately, these guys were totally just kind of sloppily dressed, had their feet up on the desk, and, hey, what's going on? Come on in, And I walked up and said, yeah, I really want to join the Air Force because I want to fly. You don't want to fly aircraft, you want to be like an NCO, an airman, because they were down dogging. They were like dogging it, the officers and stuff.
Interesting.
And they were just looking for, people to get in and recruit. So I was just deflated when I went out of there. I was like, gosh, man, I so, wanted to fly, and these guys are telling me, I can't, I got to get, a degree, and I do. So anyhow, I walked out, and I'm literally, this is no joke, walking right by the Marine Corps, recruit thing, which is right next to us, like in this little shopping mall. And by the grace of God, he said, look to the right. So I just turned over and looked in there, and this was no joke, man. Gunnery Sergeant Wheat Tech, never forget this guy. He looked serious businessman. I looked in, he caught my eye, and he goes just like this, boom, and slid off from behind that desk, never unlocked eyes with me, and just boom,
come here, boy.
Walked right up to me, with authority, man.
Yeah.
Opened up that door, welcome to the United States Marine Corps, son, come on in. I was like, damn.
Do I have a choice?
And when I walked in, I saw everything was like pencils lined up. I was like, I'm home. I was like, dang. So
the pencils.
Yeah, seriously, man, this guy was like locked tight. He was in. So I got in front of him, and I told him, I said, well, yes, sir, I really want to fly. I said, well, I tell you what, let's get on a flight program. Let me tell you, we can do that for you. And so he started this whole process, putting me in a 20-year program because he was like, well, let's get you in boot camp first. That way your tenure in the Marine Corps can start at the age of 18. And that way, by the time you're 38, you can be out of the Marine Corps and start a whole new career. So I was like, dang, this guy's really, putting some coals on the fire here and get my brain going. And so I was going to join the Marine Corps, do 4 years, get the college degree, go to officer school, and I would already have all this tenure behind me. Then I would have to do like 6 years, you go to flight school, and then you'd be 6 more years attached. And then you just re-up for another 10. You have your 20 years and you're out of 38. So he got me on a special program to where I went to boot camp, and then we would get in what's called the PLC program. So this guy was awesome because for 3 months prior to going into boot camp, because I graduated high school on May 17th, and on May 19th, I was on a bus heading to MCRD for boot camp. So
you didn't take a year to go find yourself?
Dude, no, I didn't do that. I didn't have time for that, man. I was like, forget about that. So anyhow, he would get up every morning with me and do a 3-mile run. Now, we started slow and got me up to doing a 3-mile run and stuff. And I mean, I was just like getting really gung-ho about this. I was like, this Marine Corps thing is like, I'm digging this, man. These guys are like right up my alley. And it was a good thing. Prior to this, too, let me just back up a bit. I was in Boy Scouts, too, which I loved. And I thought it was such an incredible, back at the day, an incredible, community of individuals to be with. I mean, in Texas growing up in Boy Scouts, everybody was packing heat. Everybody had shotguns, rifles, pistols on every camp out you went on. So it was not your ordinary Boy Scout troop. Learned an incredible amount of stuff for the outdoors and just life things in general, life lessons. I mean, from dirt clod wars to, other crazy things you do as a kid. But anyhow, I was able to make Eagle Scout and move on from that. But I just wanted to say that was a big influence in my life too, the Boy Scouts and being part of that as well. And I think that's what kind of intrigued me for the military as well, to kind of pursue that. Along, I just wanted to be, be able to fly and pursue
the structure of it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I kind of needed that too, or actually wanted that a little bit, just tell me which direction to go, and I'm going to go at it, 100%.
Makes sense.
So fortunately, I went to boot camp, graduated Series Honor Man out of there, which was the top guy of the class. So they gave your dress blues, which was great, a little bonus. But as I got out, I was attached to a MAG unit, MAG 41, which was a unit of F-4 Phantom aircraft, fighter aircraft. And during that time with the MAG unit, I started going to college. And then the following summer, they put us to what's called a PLC program, which is platoon leader class, and it's an accelerated program for officer school. So I went through that and did pretty good through that, and was able to get into the flight school. They put you the physical flight exam and stuff, and they said, listen, just go ahead and finish out the OCS program, and then we'll send you, and finish your college degree, and then we'll send you to Quantico to go to flight school. And I was like, sounds great. And after my hitch was up, I was like, I talked to my CO, who was a F4 pilot, and said, sir, I'm not really sure whether, I want to continue to pursue the Marine Corps, but, I'm willing to do so. But, and he goes, son, we're about to spend $3 billion on you to be pilot. He said, if you even think about not going, maybe you ought to go try something else, or at least you got to the age of 27 to come back, and then we'll put you back in, and, we'll go from there. So he kind of gave me that little nudge to say, look, if it's not something you're really 100% gung-ho to do, go try something else. But you got to the age of 27 to come back if you want to, re-up and get in the officers program or the flight program, we'll put you through it. So I had some, wild hair on my butt. I got my honorable discharge, got out, and I want to be an actor. So I, again, do pretty things radically. I moved to New York.
And what sparked that? Where did that
actually, I was doing doing bodybuilding at the time, really get into lifting and stuff like that. And this one guy that was doing these events for some of these different parties and events and stuff like that needed some bodybuilders to carry Dorothy Lamour in, this old actress, in this, Cattleman Baron's Ball or something. So he recruited me and a buddy of mine to go do this. Well, I thought this was the coolest thing. I was like, man, this is awesome. You get to be a character, this. So it kind of intrigued this little thing of like, it'd be cool to be an actor, to kind of, portray these different characters and stuff like that, and you're young and dumb and don't know any better. So anyhow, this guy had an office in New York, and he would come down to Texas and do some stuff. And he said, if you ever think of moving to New York, just look me up, and I probably have some work up here for you and stuff. Well, I didn't know this guy was like not doing well. I mean, he was in debt and stuff like that, but he was a brilliant guy. I mean, as far as a artist and stuff like that, he was a great designer, incredible artist and good designer. And he said, well, look, I was telling him, look, I think I want to, study to be acting and stuff and go to New York. And he said, well, you ought to go to the actor studio, see if you can get, accepted there or something. Well, I went on a whim, man. I went to the actor studio and auditioned and was accepted at the actor studio. And I started studying there for 2 years. So I was renting an apartment in New York. And this guy goes, look, I kind of need some help on doing these parties up here. I got these gigs with Lancome, Cosmere, L'Oreal, and all these big cottage companies. You help me down in Texas and stuff. Would you be willing to kind of, work with me on this? So I said, yeah, I'll work with you on a couple of these events and stuff. And he just kept getting a little deeper in the hole. And he said, it was like some money on it. Can you help me financially? So within about 6 months, we had that company turned around. He said, hey, you want to go partners on this with me? And I was like, heck yeah, man. You know. So I started getting more into the event industry and doing these events and parties. And we did these huge events, launch parties for like Dracar Noir, Paloma Picasso and all these other, high-end fragrance companies, L'Oreal, Lancome. And so I just went 100% into doing that and got out of the acting business because I wasn't, obviously making any cash at that.
Where do you think your self-confidence came from? I mean, even just the things that you've talked us through so far, whether it was your approach to the military or to go act, like a lot of people have to overcome the fear of failure or their self-conscious and their insecurities. Where do you think that came from in you that you went after it?
I truly believe, obviously, it's a gift from the Lord, as all things in life are in so many different ways to each of us. And there's always been like little moments in your life you may remember. One goofy little thing in my life I'll never forget. It was I was in a high school dance, and there was a spark or a moment to where like everybody's out there dancing. And this is in the 80s, which I love the 80s. I love the 80s music. I love the 80s music. Billy Idol came on, Dancing with Myself, and I there was like something clicked on in my head, and it's like, dang. That's like, yeah, I swear to you, I got on the dance floor by myself. I could care less who was watching me or whatever and looked like a complete fool, but I didn't care. Wow. And it like broke this shell that was in me that always kind of kept me down. But I was like, you know what? I really don't care what anybody thinks. And I see people laughing, having a good time. And I'm like, it's almost like you're entertaining these people, even as goofy as you look. But if you're secure enough with yourself, you don't mind because it was like,
no one's going to be thinking about it.
They don't care anyway. 10 years from now, they're not even going to remember it.
Exactly.
So I think so many things in life, if you just take the step and step out of just that insecurity or whatever feeling you may have about what other people think and not be so concerned about it. Just know that God has given you incredible gifts, blessings, and talents, and work with those that He's given you. And to be able to step out of what other people think and embrace what God's blessed you with and given to you and use that for His glory, nothing can really stop you. I mean, as far as really using those gifts and talents He's given you. And I think that was kind of part of that too, to really step out of the insecurities maybe I felt at the time, how I looked. I mean, everybody does, coming out of high school and stuff. You'll feel certain things. But again, I think it goes back to my childhood. I
was going to say, was there people in your home that modeled this very well for you?
The father, the mother that, nurtured that in us. There was never foul language or bad words spoken, never demeaning. It was always uplifting.
Well, one of the things I really picked up on, because I've obviously heard your story before, but especially today, when you were talking about, and I've heard you say it even to people that have, whether they've come into your hangar and met you, you say, we didn't know any different when you talk about the environment you grew up in, as far as whether you didn't have as much money or your house wasn't as nice as someone else's. But that's because of how your parents modeled that. They never made it seem to you guys that they were chasing something they didn't have.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a lot of households today, that the kids are watching their parents, that they're always chasing bigger and better, and we're not going to be happy until we have this or achieve this. And then that gets instilled in them. And so maybe there's a correlation there between you didn't see it that way. And so therefore, the way you looked at life, I saw a quote or heard a quote the other day, life's a lot harder for people who don't expect life to be hard. If you know it's going to be hard and you anticipate it, you're ready to go. I mean, you know that like this is not going to be just, roses. Like I have to get down, roll my sleeves up, get in the dirt and do what it takes. So you had that instilled in you at an early age. And then the way you watched your parents model things, I feel like that gave you that foundation to be able to step into something. And like, even to have a little moment, like you explained on the dance floor like that. Like, I think some people could have a moment like where they had some drinks or whatever. And they're like, I don't care what people think anymore. And they'll go have a good time. And that's the only way they can do it is if they've had some drinks. But to be able to tap into that with a sober mind and then stay in that perspective of how you view big life decisions. It's like, I'm not going to let other people's expectations of me or what I should or shouldn't do dictate my path of life. And I think that's even more rampant today because of social media, because you sit there every day and you see people's highlights of their lives. One, it's intimidating. How am I going to live up to that? How do I compare to that? You're already feeling anxious that you don't feel like you can live up to that. But then you also feel like you're under the scrutiny of all the people around you, always judging your decisions. And there's so much freedom in what you explained. And it's not just mental freedom, but there's like a joy that comes with it. True. That it's like, I can just be authentically me. Yeah. I can be who God created me to be. Yeah. And I don't have to, not being arrogant about it, but I don't have to care about what everybody else thinks about it. I care about what he thinks about it and the people that I love and are closest to me. And as long as I'm aligning with that, then the right people are going to align with what I'm doing and they're going to see my heart and what I'm doing. So I think there was an amazing, beautiful foundation that was instilled in you at a very early age. You see it in I've only met one of your brothers, but you see it in him immediately. Same thing.
One of the things that, as I was listening to you, that was so relevant in my life and with my parents was contentment. And I saw the contentment in my mom and in my father. No matter what they did, they were content and thankful and blessed to be where they were at and who they were, and not to feel they had to be somebody else and do or be something that other people strive for. Their blessing is raising 3 boys and doing the best they can for that. And you kind of see the fruits of that for me and my brothers, where that's brought us in our life. And I feel so grateful and thankful to have had parents like that, that had that foresight to see that it's not about trying to tell your children, be the best you can be, do this, do that, and strive for all this stuff, but be content who God has created you to be and the gifts and blessings God's given you.
It gives you the ability to succeed because you don't keep putting up all these fake walls that are built by your insecurities or expectations. You're a go-getter, but your motives as to why and your ability to take risks, because you take a calculated risk based on where you're trying to go, and you're not trying to think, well, if I fail, what is everybody else going to think about it? No. You're just going to learn from where you failed and then try again either in the same arena or a different one and take what you learned and move on.
Exactly. And like you say, you've probably heard a million times, it's not a failure.
Right.
It's absolutely just one way not to do it. There's always another way to get that accomplished to do it. So that's been a real eye-opener as well, seeing how other people see things. And I'm saying that's part of the naivety of not really understanding or seeing a lot of that early on, because I just didn't know any better. It's like the company I built here, like with the cinematography, the aerial cinematography company and stuff like that. And even the building, I built it the way I conceived and thought it should be built and how it would look. Not caring what anybody else thought or anything else. It's just that, man, this is cool. This is how I would do it. And then you realize when you go see like someplace in Hollywood or see some other cinematography company or something like that, and you're going, dang, wow, what a difference. But you didn't have a preconceived notion that that's what it's supposed to look like. Because if I did, this place would look like a shambles. Because you go to those places like, whoa, everything's disorganized, whatever. Just, I guess the point I was making about that is embrace the gifts that you have and what you see, and don't feel you have to do what somebody else has done, or emulate what somebody else has done.
Exactly.
You've got your own spirit of uniqueness that you need to bring to the table.
And there's going to be people that resonate with your uniqueness.
Yeah.
If you're trying to cater to everybody, that you want everybody to like the way you do things.
Dude, your arms are huge.
Yeah, dude, look at this guy. Are you kidding me?
Anyhow.
You threw me off. I don't even know. I just blacked out for a second. No, but when you try to cater to everybody, you become a slave to it because you can't please everyone. Even if you do everything perfectly, you doing things perfectly is going to piss somebody off. Even when you start to get traction in something that you were doing, let's say you started out passionate about I'll just use myself, for example, about fitness, and I started posting fitness content. Well, it starts to get traction, and there were people started to resonate with it and started getting more followers and views and stuff. And then you get kind of caught up in, all right, what I did worked and it got attention, and I had to keep doing more of that to keep getting more attention to keep building. But then you start to lose why you started doing it in the first place. And what got you here is not going to get you now. Where do you want to go next? So you have to have the ability to stay authentic, even when you do see traction. Okay. So now that leads me into, you're at the event business, and we're going to get into the chair cover. So how does that all take place?
So the event company, as I said, we're doing these high-end parties and whatnot around the country, actually, and doing a lot of traveling and whatnot. And there was an event that we were doing for a Drakkar Noir. It was a men's fragrance. And their bottle looks like one of these little black, stones, like you'd see in a Japanese restaurant or something, like a river stone or something. Cool little bottle, and but everything was black matte. And we were doing the launch party at the Lincoln Squash Court in New York City. And so we started bringing in, the black tablecloths and all the stuff. It was all black matte and stuff like that, black flowers, black vases. And they bring in these white folding chairs. And I'm like, oh,
no shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I said, dude, man, this ain't gonna work, So I thought, where's the spray paint? And I was like, there ain't no way. So I was like, you got more of those black tablecloths, let's throw them around the chairs. So, we're throwing around chairs, doing everything we can to disguise these things. And we had done earlier some of these performance art pieces, on some of the events we've done, where we take these, they look like just a regular pillowcase, but they were big, made out of spandex. And we would have people crawl in these things, and they would do all these different shapes and orbs and put their faces and stuff. And it was like one of these ideas of and literally laying in bed at night. And I'm thinking, I wonder if I took that sack and threw it around a chair, what would do? And so it was as simple as that, and because it's stretched, and I figured, well, it's stretch and, contour around this chair and stuff, it contours around the body. I threw one on there, and I think this was just at the house, some little folding chair I had there. And I thought, man, if I tuck this in and cut this here, and it's like, so I took it down to this guy that had done some work for us on different, curtains and stuff we'd done. And he had worked with, the swimsuit material before, so because he built the socks for us, in the past. So I said, hey, I've got this design. I want to, lay it out. Can you cut this out for me? So he did it in a matter of, 2 or 3 minutes, cut it, sewed it up, put some elastic around the bottom of it. And I'll never forget when we're running down to the Plaza Hotel in right there in Manhattan, because they had the biggest ballroom chairs. And I think, damn, it could fit on this. Probably fit on anything.
Sure.
So I threw it over the chair, and I was like, it was like one of those moments, ooh, I was like, dang, there's something here. I told my partner, I said, this could be pretty cool, man. We should try this at, some of the events we're doing and stuff. So I made 200 of them or something to use at one of the parties we went to. And people were like, what's that? It's like, change the look of the room. Because before you'd have just these, skeleton of chairs. Now they've got something on it to actually create some kind of, art form to it, to tie in with the table, to tie in with the vase or the centerpiece and stuff. So it really tied the whole look of the room together once, you put these chair covers around these things. So it started to get some traction, because we had an event company. I was able to use these at a lot of the parties we went to, and it kind of grew a little bit. Well, it came to a point where I was like, I think I should maybe pursue this a little bit. And it was funny because the night I did the chair cover, a quick story on this, the night I kind of designed that in my head of what I thought the pattern and stuff should look like, the name came to me like that. I go, man, that looks like a piece of sculpture. And in my hillbilly Texas accent, it's like, that looks like a piece of sculpture. It's like, oh, wow, wait a minute. That kind of works.
When did the accent go away? Let's bring that back, baby.
You're like, well, get me with my brothers. Real quick. Just a minute. I'll be right there. Hold on there. Down the road a piece. My wife loved that when we were in a cab one time. And she's a beautiful lady. Speaking of her, because we met in New York City. Okay. And but here goes another one. A boy from Texas married a woman that was born and raised in New York City, but great lady. We've been together for 35, years, and still love her to death. Beautiful lady. But that's a whole other story. So back to the chair cover story. We ended up moving. I had a place in New York and had met my wife. So we moved down to Florida because I had another office in Florida. and where we were doing events out of there. And so I basically said, look, I'm just going to start doing this chair cover thing. And I sold my half of the business to my business partner. And he's still doing it this day. He's doing gangbusters and has done a great job. And had a great career to that. Yeah, he still is. Super, really good guy. And so I pursued the chair cover thing. And for the first 3 or 4 years, it was sweating bullets. I mean, I took every dime I had and sunk it into this thing. Yep. But I had this just unblinding faith, that this is going to work. It's kind of like one of those things you just don't know any better. Mm-hmm. It's like, that's going to work, And that's the good thing about having that kind of attitude. Don't get fearful or don't have any type of anything that's going to get in your way that's negative, that it's not going to work. And I'm not saying everything's going to work, but you're at least going to be able to
just hurdles
navigate through it. That's all. They're little hurdles because I was going in front of people and they were saying like, well, what is this? I said, well, just use them. I'll give them to you for free. Just try it out. Yeah. And as soon as they did, they were like, God, where do you get these? And I was like, well, I'll sell them to you. So anyhow, I got traction. And it was funny. The first really big customer I had was a good buddy of mine, Joe Koza, who was director of catering of the Marriott Marquis in New York, right there in Times Square. So he bought about 500 of them from me, which really was kind of seed money to get me going because I didn't have any in stock. It was I'm promoting these things and had none in stock. Yep. So we'll make it work. It was kind of like, I was like, faking it till I was making it, they say. I put all my money.
Difference is faking it till you make it today means you go lease a car that you can't afford and put on a whole.
I wasn't faking it like that.
You weren't doing that. I got it done. Okay, there we go.
So what I did is I put all my money initially into this incredible marketing package. Mm-hmm. I went all out on the photographs, the swatch cards, everything else, but I had no product, but I had a great marketing piece. So I got out and marketed this thing, everywhere we could, all through Florida, the resorts, all these places and stuff. And like I said, it started getting traction. We had a couple of people, that would buy it. The Dolphin and the Swan bought a bunch of them, like 1,000 a piece. And the resort there at Disney World. And I knew the director of catering there pretty good, funny guy, Greek guy like myself. And he said, Mitch, you're doing this all wrong. I was like, what? He goes, don't sell them, rent them. He said, you want to make money, rent this stuff. And I was like, really? I don't really want to keep them. He said, yeah, but you're going to make a lot more money.
My name is Jacob McLaughlin, and I'm the founder of Nuda Medical Device Sales. Medical device sales is the selling of medical equipment to hospitals, surgeons. They're actually in the surgeries, and the average rep's going to make around $177,000. And what we've been able to do is help people break in about 8 weeks at around $100,000 starting out in the industry. It usually is 5 to 7 interviews, 6 to 12 weeks long in the interview process, and they go up against thousands of people. But that's because you are going to be working with some of the smartest human beings, such as surgeons. You're going to make over 6 figures. You get your car paid for, all your gas paid for, and all your travel paid for. We've been able to help over 2,000 people do this in the last 2 years. Not only do we help people break in to make a difference and change other people's lives, they also get to change their lives. If you're interested in helping people and you're interested in financially becoming free, we can definitely help you. And I think you should check out Nuda Medical Device Sales, our podcast, while you can also click the link where you guys can learn more about what we do at Nuda Medical Device Sales. I absolutely love Brenton. I thank him so much for what he's doing for all of you. And I hope you guys keep enjoying the episode.
That's when we started renting the product out, and I got some in, I'd rent it out, and it really is starting to create a revenue.
Have you patented it at this point?
Oh, yeah, I patented. Well, thank you for saying that. Yeah, it was the first thing I did when I designed the cover.
So is that where you spent your seed money?
Seed money was on getting the patent for the product and then getting all the marketing material and stuff too.
If you watch like Shark Tank, how many times do you see people, they spend their money on inventory right out of the gate? And now you're inventory heavy. And you don't, you'd see.
No, that's a good point.
Yes.
That's a very good point. Yes. Make sure you got a market before you start throwing money at it too much. But I went and made sure I had the patent secured. It was a design patent, so it was good for 14 years. And then from that, obviously, we started other products, which I'll get into in a minute. But the point with Joe Coase and these guys that run the product is where you could really start generating some revenue, because the product, let's say, cost me $10 to make and I could rent it for 5 or 6. Well, after 3 or 4 rentals, it's just gravy money coming in. So I designed these duffel bags. I worked with this dive company to create these duffel bags. I always loved, I was like the MacGyver of trying to figure things out. I love figuring, how do you make this bigger? How do you make that better? How do you make this, ship this easier, do more this, efficient, make things easier? it's either I was too lazy and I wanted to create something to make it easier, or I just like designing the stuff. I don't know, but
a little bit of both.
A little bit of both. It was just an evolution of the product as it started going, and the rental really took off. So we were looking at expanding this little building where it was like 1,400 square feet in Florida to the building next to it, which would give us about 3,000 square feet. And I was going to put a washer and dryer. We were going to do our own, laundry service.
And what were you doing before you?
Before that, my wife and I were going down to the laundromat with a bunch of quarters.
That's my favorite part of the story.
And washing these chair covers. Yeah, that was about a year we did that. So, I mean, humble beginnings.
Everybody thinks when you get traction, it's all easy money after that.
Years of, hamburger helper, tuna fish.
Because that money that comes in goes right back out.
Dude, it was right back. Now, my wife and I did early on, just biblically speaking, we came to know the Lord together in Florida, gave our lives to the Lord, and really our focus was not only, running this business as a godly business, but also doing what the Word of God says, and that is stay debt-free or get out of debt as quick as possible. Obviously, you'd have to borrow money or do stuff. We had mortgage on the house and stuff, but the money we had that was coming in additional, not only to keep the business going, was also to get us out of debt. Even if it was $2, $5, whatever, we're not going to Disney. We're not doing this. We'll go to the beach. We'll do this. Instead of something elaborate, we're going to chip away at that debt.
People don't realize how much of a blueprint there is in the Bible for finances.
Incredible. And we chipped away at that. And finally, we got, we're debt free. Yeah. And the freedom that comes with that is incredible. And the amount of not only freedom from just not owing, but also the amount of additional income you realize you start having when you're not giving all this interest money away to the bank, to the, wherever it goes. And so it was quite, quite an eye opener once you kind of got past that hurdle of getting debt free.
I think that goes back to your childhood again, though.
Oh, truly,
because your delayed gratification was something that you adopted at an early age, where it's like, well, I can go get that item or that car, or that house or whatever that is. I want it now, and then I'll make it work because they're going to give me the loan to get it. And now you're chasing that payment, just like you said.
And that was a great point, because as my childhood, it was that. I mean, my dad, another great man, and he always had these great sayings, but one of them was, Dad, I want to get this, can I get this? You're going to do that? Well, yeah, you got to work for it. But before you do and you get the money, give it 2 weeks. Come see me in 2 weeks. Let me know if you still want that thing. And it was difficult because you really wanted it.
Yeah,
You're impulsive, you want to buy it, you got to have it.
Burning.
Man, 2 weeks later, I was like, I don't know if I really want to spend all my money on that now, because I wanted it then, but it's like, it doesn't mean that much to me now.
Good lesson.
And, it created that kind of be patient, don't be impulsive. And, you truly are blessed that way in life. You really are, because you're just not giving yourself away or giving into your impulsivity. And when you do that, you have a tendency to give away a little bit of yourself when you do that, because it's, self-gratification instead of discipline, instead of saying, look, I need to be patient and I need to honor these gifts that I've been giving.
Give a little bit of yourself away with it.
Really
I love that. I like that a lot.
It's somewhere or another.
So you started renting them out.
Yeah, I started renting them out.
Bags designed.
And then again, we started, making a little more money and stuff. And my wife and I always wanted to move out west. We had talked about them when we lived in New York, and it was getting, the company was really starting to grow. So we started getting more people from California calling and, other parts of the country on the West Coast. And I'm thinking, Florida, we're shutting it down at night and they're just opening up in California. So we looked to move to Arizona as more centrally located area to live. And plus, we love the weather. We love the Southwest. And I just started looking into the possibilities of coming out here. And I went down and talked to this little Jewish man that was making our swatches down in Florida, down in Miami. And I just mentioned it to him. I said, yeah, my wife and I are talking about maybe moving out west or something. He goes, really? Where? I said, well, Arizona. You're kidding. He goes, I just got all this information from a place called Scottsdale, Arizona. You ought to check it out. What are the odds?
Right.
And my wife and I have been both deeply in prayer about this. And 2 weeks later, I was here in Scottsdale. This is in 93. And I talked to first off, I got the information and he gave me the card. Mark Linsalati was a realtor out here at the time at the airport. And he said, dude, you got to get out here, man. Prices are really low. If you want to buy some dirt, it's a great time to come out. So I came out here. We scouted areas all over the place. And I had just started taking flight lessons. This is back in the late 80s, early 90s. And so I was big into aviation. I thought, man, what a great place to be if I could get somewhere, at this air park, in Scottsdale. And there was nothing here, nothing. Yeah. And he showed me some of these lots out here. And it was like, this is about the only one I could afford, and I couldn't even afford it. And so we started chipping away a little bit, and we gave him a number, and I fell off my, stool when they took the offer. I was like, oh God, how am I going to pay for it now? But
it just got real.
Anyway, it got real, Yeah. And, but the minute, they said that, I came out here and just prayed over this lot, man. I asked God, I said, God, this is yours. And I said, whatever you want to do with it, whatever you want it to be or look like, and how long ever you want us to have it, I will honor you with it. Pray that you allow us to have it and do, to your glory, whatever that's going to look like or be. So long story short, my wife and I, moved out. We put this building up and started architectural drawings in late 93 and had it CO'd in the summer of 94. And then I moved the company from Florida out to here, and only one guy came with me. And so we hired everybody else here. But then it just started to grow, and I started designing other products and went from sculpt chair to sculpt wear. So I designed patents and put patents on table covers, covers for garbage cans and stuff like that. And it's funny because I see them nowadays. You go to Home Depot, right, or you go into, office supply store, and they've got these, you see the 8-foot tables with, the old sculptware, table covers on, the Spanish.
I see a lot on the cocktail tables, especially.
Cocktail tables, usually at the movie theaters and stuff. You see them, and you start seeing them all over the place, and you're like, I know those.
Yeah, right.
But it's funny because you look at them, you kind of chuckle, and then you move on. It's just kind of like a part of your life. You look at it, and you're grateful to have been, kind of add something to, the community that way in a sense. It's kind of neat because it was always, to me, it was like functional art. Yeah. And it was neat to be able to see something that's kind of taken off, and you see it other parts of the country.
And it was a launching point.
Yeah, and the launching point for H5 helicopters, exactly. So in 2008, I had kind of come to the stops on sculptware, and I was at a point to where, we had everything paid off, and we were really blessed in that regards. And I really wanted to pursue something that I had such a passion for, which was film, which I'd always loved, and flying. And I had fortunately got my helicopter license back in the late 90s, and had been fortunate enough to, fly small aircraft, and then got up to a R-22 helicopter, and then a Jet Ranger. And then we were looking at getting into the aerial cinematography company, which would mean I need to get a bigger aircraft to hang the big camera systems off of. So we ended up buying an A-Star, an AS350 B2. I bought it brand new from Eurocopter, which is now Airbus, and built it from scratch to be a aerial cinematography ship, strictly for filming, still photography, and that kind of platform. So I sold the company in 2008. I'm one of those guys that buys high and sells low. So that's kind of what happened. So I'm blessed in some ways, but not in others. God keeps me humble. So we took what we did have, put into that, and that really started taking off for us. We got some really great gigs from a lot of the networks, Travel Channel, Discovery, Nat Geo. We did work for the BBC Planet Earth series and stuff. And I kind of grew from there, and filming Baja, 1000 and the Reno air races. We did a lot of work with Breitling, Red Bull.
That clip of the Red Bull pilot when he stalls and falls, and then
they did that for a commercial.
That was gosh. And then your Apple.
Yeah, and then just recently we did all the. If you have Screensaver on Apple TV, we filmed all the Grand Canyon stuff. And then,
what was the stat they gave you? How many people had seen that at this point? It was
that's okay. So we had done the Grand Canyon, and then we were going to film. I think a year and a half later, which was just about 8 months to a year ago, we did Monument Valley, and it just came out on Apple TV recently. And while we were there filming that, Phil Holland, who's probably one of the best cinematographers out there, guy's incredibly just talented, got information from Apple. They go, hey, man, you guys will never believe, but all that stuff we've been filming, Grand Canyon, all their other stuff. They said, it is the most viewed content in the world. And we're like, really? And we're about to do this. It's pretty cool. They go over 6.5 trillion views on this stuff. And I was like, whoa. Because Apple TV and Screensavers, I think 135 countries, 24/7, running all the time. So it was crazy to see and hear that it's got that kind of, views. And quick story on that, I'll back up. The reason I started the cinematography company too, and one of the things there was that I truly wanted to, obviously, in some way, allow God to work through me to be able to show his beauty. And one of those things I wanted to do was showcase the beauty of what he's created through like the Grand Canyon, Painted Desert, Monument, all these beautiful places in Arizona. And so I tried to do a little, we didn't have YouTube at the time, but tried to do these little videos and just put them up places and truly try to express, God's creation, what he's done and the beauty of it and everything else. And so it never really took off. And, I remember just, saying that prayer early on to God, I really pray that any of this stuff that we film someday will really be able to reach out and a lot of people will be able to see this. Unknowingly, 10 years later, we say that, that stuff you filmed and worked on, over 6.5 trillion people. So you never know when that blessing and that prayer that you, just put out there to the Lord may just come back and he'll show you that how he truly has blessed you. And
which shot is that that's on there? Is that the Grand Canyon shot that's...
Well, I mean, it's kind of a compilation of all the shots. So in other words, even just the Grand Canyon at the time, it was that.
Yeah.
And I think some of the other stuff.
Look for it now.
Oh yeah, no, the Grand Canyon. But then the really cool stuff is the recent stuff we shot, which is Lake Powell, Monument Valley,
that's right,
Navajo Canyon and stuff like that, which if you come and do the helicopter rides with us, I'll actually take you to some of these places.
There we go. There's the plug, baby.
There's
the plug. So you shifted from the filming now to the tours and the experiences.
Right. Okay. So we set the aircraft up as a film platform, but we also needed to offset some of the revenue, cost of revenue generation by doing what's called a 135 certificate, which is air carrier. So it enabled us to basically start taking people up on tours and be able to show them firsthand, not just from a standpoint from behind the lens, but also firsthand by being in the cockpit of the aircraft to take them and fly them to some of these places that we've been able to experience just through filming over time. And then, we've done also other work for like LiDAR, line work, for like different power companies and things like that. And we've done a lot of work for testbed work for Lockheed, Boeing, Raytheon for the missile guidance systems and stuff like that, which, those can be very fun.
Absolutely.
Very
the
exciting.
Stuff you've done with Dylan, those shots.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really
a lot of the,
cool.
The things for Dylan Precision, work with those guys on live fire, and just seeing some of that footage, which we'll be coming out with more footage and more YouTube videos on some of the content we've done. I haven't been the greatest at that. I'm the best social media guy, but we've got so much that's in the can of content that I'd love to get out there and be able to show people some really cool things that we've been able to experience over the past really 15 years of doing this. And it's been like such an incredible, journey and ride, from, the humble
look at all the
of
pivots,
Hearst, Texas.
Look at all the pivots you've made.
Yeah, it's like I look back on it, where I'm at right now and just see all the different chapters of your life. And it's such a cool thing to experience kind of the actor that I wanted to be, but in real life.
Yeah, you lived
because you became all these different characters.
You actually lived it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think we all kind of do that in a sense, create this own image of ourselves as actors through life too. We want to be or do something. And it's cool to kind of experience that firsthand.
It's like that speech that McConaughey gave when he finally won. I think it was an Oscar or whatever. He finally won some big award.
Right.
And he went up there and they always ask me who's my hero. And he said, it's me in 10 years or me in 5 years, whatever it is. And I'm always chasing that guy. That's the guy I want to be. And it's always going to be that guy because I never want to arrive.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
And it's always been changing.
Going back to even what we talked about in the email, fear, not letting it stop you. You hear the saying that fear is a mile wide, but only an inch deep. Right. Like once you actually step into it. So imagine how different your life would look if fear would have stopped you. I mean,
I'd still be mowing lawns in Hearst, Texas.
You have a good tan.
Who knows? And there's nothing wrong with that.
That's right.
And that's what I'm saying. If you're content with that,
it's beautiful.
And that's what I guess I should get out also. Don't feel that you have to be somebody that God didn't make you.
Yeah.
We're all different and we all have different interests and different things that is put in our heart to do. And there could be, it's like my brother, he's content. He's more of an 8 to 5er where my other brother's like me. But it's like, that's okay.
Exactly.
I mean, that's okay. God willing, at the end of the day, we're all going to be in the same place together. So,
kind of leads me into because you might have already answered. With all the things, the life experiences you just talked through, military, entrepreneur, so many different things. What advice would you give to young men today?
Wow. I mean, first,
because you're a father. I mean, you've checked a lot of boxes.
A lot of boxes. For me, and this is for me, and I say this from my heart.
Okay, you can phrase it this. What advice would you give yourself as a young man then?
For myself as a young man, I wish I'd have come to know the Lord sooner because it really helped me focus on who I am and who God created me to be. Mm. As far as who I am, because it begins from the inside out. Mm. And the inside out is that cornerstone of who God created you in his image. And that cornerstone is really what establishes who you are and identifies that you are loved by Christ and loved by the Lord. And then from there, it's kind of wherever and whatever God has put in your heart to be. What you
just said, it is actually what allows you to end up being selfless. Because when you become comfortable in who you are, you start focusing less on your own insecurities and having to compensate for them. So you're not always looking at yourself to try to make sure I'm covering for myself. If you're comfortable in who you are, you can actually focus on the other people. Like you walk into a party and you're focused on what's everybody going to think of me when I walk in, and you're super anxious. But if you flip that script and you walk in and you think, how am I going to encourage somebody or make someone else have a good time? Now you're not thinking about yourself because you're comfortable, and you can actually focus outwardly because you're healthy on the inside.
That's right. And all the attention and all the weight of the world goes off of you because it's not on you anymore. It felt like that way when I truly came to the Lord. It felt like I took off a 100-pound backpack of rocks. And I truly felt alive. I felt like free from whatever burden I'd been carrying on me, which is to be somebody or something that I thought society wanted me, or I had to be, or I had to prove this or do that. I would always build these things up and it'd fall over on me or whatever. I mean, we all have that and look to that. But I'm just saying, for me, that was truly what was a defining, life-changing moment for me. Not that we all don't have life challenges and things we go through, but I had a cornerstone to always fall back on. To always go to, and to know that at the end of the day, no matter what comes in front of you, I have a Heavenly Father there to catch me and to hold me and to comfort me through those difficult times. And there have been many difficult times in my life. I mean, it may sound great in a little interview we've done real quick, but, we always tell about the great things, but there is 90% more difficult things that we didn't talk about that really create the character and the person that you are and how you navigate through that. And I think it begins with a sense of humility and love, to where you really have to be humble enough to really accept, what you have been blessed with, and not be arrogant in the sense to think that, oh, I got this, or I'm going to, and all the stuff about the over arrogance, like, oh, I'm just going to plow through this, and I don't bury anybody that, gets in my way. And it's like, that's not, when you do that, you will end up burying yourself.
That takes us back to conversation we had on your beautifully designed stairs.
Do you like that? Yeah. Nice. I did clean them.
Yesterday when we were talking about a gentleman that's in our life that's going through some physical difficulties, and we were talking about the actual beauty in it is the ability to surrender that he can't rely on himself anymore. And it actually, there's a illusion of control that we have to fight or let go of, that we think we are self-sufficient and we can rely on ourselves. And sometimes a physical ailment or a sickness, whatever, can get you to that point where you're like, I can't do any of this on my own, and I need God for everything. What if we could get there without having to have the physical ailment?
And see, that's where I kind of got there with, because so many people say, well, I came to know the Lord, because I was a drug addict or this. I didn't do drugs. I didn't drink. I really had no issues. I just had an emptiness. I had a yearning to just say, look, I know I'm not as full as I could be, and I'm not running on all cylinders here. Something's not full in my life. We're always trying to fill it up with cars or this or that, whatever it may be. I mean, everybody's got their own vice or things to fill it up with. Not till I really accepted Christ and to come into my life that I truly feel totally and completely full. Like if I put more drop, it would just fall over, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
that when he does fill you up, and then that drop that overflows, that's the love we share in other people's lives that point them to him.
And it's that inexpressible joy, as it speaks out in the Bible, that you have a sense of. And it's beyond a feeling. It is beyond an emotion. It is an experience that you have with the Holy Spirit. And that's why too many people talk about, the feelings and the this and that. It's beyond that. It's inexpressible, as it says in the Word of God. And you'll know it when it's truly living in you. And like I said, it's always easy to talk about it. To walk that life is a whole nother chapter and a whole nother story.
The commitment to not let your feelings dictate your life decisions.
Yeah.
But it's so hard. It's so hard because
it's rampant in this world today. Everybody makes every
decision. If it feels good, do it.
They make their whole life experience off
Yeah.
a feeling,
Yeah.
not off, their experience of what they're going.
So I've been having my phone, one, because last week I talked about I'm going to be having a baby any day. So I have my phone next to me just in case. I got to make that mad dash still. It has not come yet. My wife wishes it was today so far, but we're just one day at a time, baby. One day at a time. But also, I didn't give you any of my questions. We talked about this yesterday because I wanted everybody to see, one, how genuine you are, but also not giving you the ability to have calculated answers. And you already beat me with what you just said to my next question. Okay. And I love that. I absolutely love that. So what I want to move on to now is, how would you define legacy? And what do you want your legacy to be?
I could tear up when I'm saying that one.
Good.
There's a song by Petra, True Believer. And if your legacy could be that he was a true believer in me, in Christ, that would be it. And I would hope that people could see Christ living in me, whatever that looks like to them. And that's what I would strive for. And I see that in my brother. And I see it in both of my brothers. And that's why it's hard for me to even listen to that song at times, because I see those men. That really, to me, is the greatest legacy to leave, because it's the one thing that carries every person on. It doesn't matter what you do, what you have, where you are in life or whatever, but that you had a foundation that honored God in all you did. Not just, I left a big bank account for my kids to waste or throw away or whatever, or maybe help them, who knows. But that you made a difference in their life because of who you were and what you shared with them. And there's no greater, I think, whether you want to call it job, occupation, or whatever, than being a parent and raising your children. That is the legacy of who you are. That will define.
And for those that don't have the blessing of being a parent, it's in the lives of the people that are around them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then that's well put. And thank you for saying that, because there are people that don't, but they do have a legacy of saying, who you are as a person and what you do, you affect people's lives just being here.
Yeah.
And the time you spend with them is the most precious gift you can give anybody, because the greatest gift we have is our time, because there is no price on it. You can't buy any more of it. There's just a finite amount of it. So sharing your time with me is a great gift that you're giving me and allowing me to have with you. And I thank you for that. And I think if we could just share that with others and let them know how special they are as well. And we all have different ideas and different things and whatnot, but if we could all land on one thing, and that is truly what I see is just the love of the Lord living in you. That's a bond that brings us all together. And there's nothing ugly or mean or angry or, bad about that. It's all just love of what Christ preaches and teaches.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the only true man that truly professed to be the living God. Yeah. No other religion or faith or belief ever said. So truly there is only one. And that's it. And so
I love that. If you had a billboard right out here at the 101 in Scottsdale Road, and you could have it say anything you want on it, but it has your name signed below it and even a picture of your face, other than it saying H5 this way, what would you have it say?
Gee. Well, the old stand by Jesus saves.
Yeah, right.
No. Wow. That's a good one. I've got so many things I could put on there, you know?
Give me 3.
I would say honor God, you know, and I truly, Jesus is Lord. And I mean, it all focuses around that, because to me, that is the cornerstone, as I said earlier in the conversation, to your life, to your eternal life. It's not just here. It's what we do here as to where we're going to be when we leave. And I think that's one thing that, if I could share, is that we are all, as I said before, kind of all aliens in a sense. You know, people say, are there aliens? I go, absolutely. We're one of them, right, because we're not of this world. We truly aren't. We came in spirit to get in a body, and then at some point in time, we'll be out of this body. And by the grace of God, I pray I'll be in heaven with him. And so everybody will pass at some point in time. And just where we're going to be on that other side is how we live and what we believe now, and really, you know, focus on is the main thing in our life.
Last week when I did the first episode, when I first opened up, I talked about how I didn't want to take a whole episode describing what this show is going to be, because I didn't want to put it into a box. Today has been a little bit more interview style, just because I want people to hear your story, get to know you a little bit, but then there's also the discussion. And what I love about what's coming out in this discussion is, from the interview side, like you said, there's a lot of highlights. But in this discussion, you're now revealing that layer that gets peeled back, that when somebody's sitting at home, it doesn't matter if they're, you know, a young boy like you were, seeing the planes and saying, I think that's what I want to do, or they're a teenager, or they're in their last chapter of their life. It's not too late to step into a whole new way of living life. Yeah. The difficulties that you've gone through, the humility of the moments that you've shared where you've had setbacks, that's where a lot of the people relate. And then it gives them the ability to then resonate with your story and say, well, if he's gone through something similar as me, then I have the hope that I can do something in my own life that I feel like I was purposed to do, whatever that looks like for them. I've noticed a lot lately, especially for me when I'm having discussions with different guys, it's rarely something I've done well that ends up leading to a conversation that we really resonate with each other. Like, you can find commonalities with friends and have, you know, I almost more so call them acquaintances than deep friendships, just because it's centered around a commonality of something you enjoy doing together. But when you've gone through something painful that's similar to someone else's story and you relate on that, the depth of that relationship is just different. It's unique because you understand each other to each other's core. Right. And so that's what I'm so glad is coming out in this discussion is it's not, don't just look at, you know, this facility. Somebody walks in this facility, right? And they see helicopters in your cars and all these beautiful things, or listen to your story of the success of your business, or a military guy, or the toughness, or the go-getter. It's like, so many people say, I'm just not a go-getter. I quit. I'm a quitter. And they put that label on themselves. But all of us at some point are going to face those difficult times in life. And being able to now have the foundation, that's what you really talked about. You had that cornerstone to lean back on. That's what you've always known is your safe place, that no matter what's happening around you, you know you're rooted. And so when someone is going through something difficult, they know that, like you said, it doesn't matter what everybody else thinks about me. I know I was created for a purpose. I know this life's going to be hard. Back to that quote that when you expect life to be easy, you're going to be disappointed, or, you know, it's harder for people that don't expect life to be hard. Expect it to be hard, but know he's given you what it takes to face it. That's something that I'm really learning right now, is asking for God to pace me, because so often we do catch ourselves. It's like you said earlier, either I'm really innovative and I want to make things better, or maybe I'm lazy and I don't want to have to do it the hard way. And I said a little bit of both. Well, how many times have we done something really hard and then not gotten the result we've wanted out of that hard work? And then it's like, do I really have to keep doing this hard work day after day after day? And it's so much easier to quit in that moment, right? Or how many times has it actually worked out, and then now we get comfortable and a little complacent, right? So we start to look for that break in life. We start to look for, when am I going to stop having problems with the business? When am I going to stop having problems with the kids? When am I going to stop having problems with my relationships or health or whatever? And then when it rains, it pours. Then all of them are happening at the same time. And you're constantly just looking, when are things going to be good? When are things going to be easy? I'll be happy then. I'll be happy then. I'll be happy then. And to not sound too much like a meathead, I always go back to the gym analogies, but if you go into that gym and you're expecting it to be easy, you're going to be severely disappointed. But if you go in there and you expect, I'm going to have to put in the work. I know it's going to be really hard. It's going to be painful. My central nervous system, my heart's going to be beating out of my chest. I'm going to be freaking out. I don't know if I can do this. But if you just focus on your breathing and you calm down and you take it one rep at a time, and even though it's painful, you start to train your mind to think, hey, I can do this. Even when it is hard, even when I want to quit, I don't have to. So we stop looking for the breaks and we anticipate that life is going to be difficult, full of hurdles, full of things we have to overcome, but we're not afraid of them anymore. We learn from each one of them and we start to see that God gives us resiliency. And if we ask for his pace, now we don't even need the breaks, because if we're going at his pace, he's going to give us exactly what we need when we need it. I'm trying to now, when I start or in my prayers, he asks us to ask for things, which is, I was talking to a buddy about it yesterday. It's such kind of a confusing thing that feels a little bit of a roundabout, where it's like, you want me to ask, but then I submit everything to your will. And even if what I'm asking for might even be pointless. And it's like, why don't I just ask and say, just give me what you want, but you still want me to ask? And it's confusing. But when you fully trust him, you start to get to that point where you're like, all right, these are the things I think would make me feel better or life would be better. But what I really want is exactly what you know is best for me. You made me, you wired me. You know my psychology, you know what makes me tick, you know what I need when I need it. That's what I'm going to ask for. I'm going to relinquish the fact that I don't even know what I need.
And that's the beauty of it. I think what you hit on a point there, and it goes to a relationship with your wife, your girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever's listening, to expectation. And so often we go in to do something with our expectation of what we want back. If you have the humility and the wherewithal to say, I have no expectations. I'm doing this because I love you, and I'm not expecting anything in return. I'm working out because I know this is good. I'm doing this because, it's good. It's like when you're saying, I was asking the Lord, I want this. You want it because you're expecting something back in return for you asking for what you want. If you go in with no expectations, like when you say, I'm going to give my wife a back rub. Okay, well, what do you want?
Kind of exchange we work.
If you do it because I love you and I know you're in pain, and I'm expecting nothing in return, then your life will be so much better because you're not going to be frustrated because you were expecting something. You're not going to be disappointed because you were expecting something. And all these things that pile on you because of your expectations from what you asked or did, there's that sense of, I'm completely content because I expected nothing in return.
Sure.
And it's a lot easier to navigate through those things because anything you get is going to be bonus. Yeah. It's going to be a blessing. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'll steal that from John Maxwell. He tells a story. He says, if you see somebody that's sick, you want to heal them. If you see somebody that's broken, you want to fix them. You see somebody that's poor, broken, you want to give them money, resource to help them. But if you see value in somebody, you want to serve them. Because all those first parts are still you filling a void, you meeting a need. But if you just truly want to serve, like you said, you expect nothing in return and you're doing it.
That's so often, like you said, and I'm sure you heard it, we always get in our own way. Mm-hmm. We ask God for all this stuff and then we jump back and get in God's way to do his blessing in our life. And that comes from our own selfish, sinful desires of what we want out of life or what we think we want. Mm-hmm. And God knows what's best. And that's why sometimes when you say, I asked for this and I didn't get it. Well, thank God I didn't get it because I couldn't have dealt with it. I mean, I've asked God, I wish we would have done this. I could have done. And I think, my gosh, if I'd have done that, I would have had, this incredible amount of wealth and this. And all of a sudden, all these things now become my idols. Oh, I want a plane. I want this. I want that. Yeah. And now I don't own these things. These things own me. Mm-hmm. And that's where you have to kind of build that real, balance in life. Mm-hmm. To where they're just that. They're things. None of this is going with me. This is going to be wood, stubble, and hay at some point in time. Mm-hmm. But what's value is a relationship. Mm-hmm. What's value is spending time with someone. Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that thorn, like with Paul, if you're not familiar, there's a story where Paul always has this ailment and he's always asking God to remove this thorn from his side and he doesn't do it. And a lot of pastors I've heard or people talk about, they'll say, well, God didn't remove that thorn because it kept him dependent on God. No, he's already in a jail cell praising God.
Right.
That thorn gave him the ability to relate with other people in pain and to keep him from becoming arrogant. Amen. And then a lot of people put that almost like a curse they accept on themselves that I'm always going to have financial problems. I'm always going to be sick. I'm always going to be the least of everybody because God has to keep it that way. So that way I stay dependent on him. That's not true.
No.
That's a lie from the enemy that's been put in a pretty package that some pastor put it in, and then you want to buy into it.
Yeah.
That's not the case. No. Look at those things as gifts in order to relate with people. But if you're truly dependent on God, you don't need those things to stay in sync with him. That's why I have to simplify it. I got to get the dummy version for myself, and I write it on top of all my stuff. Pace me, Lord. That's it. I got to keep it simple because I just get ahead of myself all the time like a dog chasing a car.
That's right.
And I'm tired of chasing cars.
It gets exhausting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Thanks for doing this with me.
Oh,
really
absolutely, brother.
This.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that wraps episode 2. See you guys next week.